3 p.m., the 16th of December, 1864. Peach Orchard Hill, Nashville. The order comes down the line. Colonel Charles Thompson looks at his men, the 13th United States Colored Troops. Most of them were born into bondage right here in Tennessee. For the past year, white generals kept them digging trenches and guarding railroad tracks, said they weren't capable of real combat. Now those same generals are sending them straight up that hill. The slope rises before them. Confederate artillery sits at the top, barrels aimed downward. Rebel infantry waits behind earthworks with rifles loaded. Between the 13th and those fortifications lies open ground. No cover, no protection, just grass and mud and fallen trees designed to slow them down while Confederate guns tear them apart. The men grip their rifles. They know what this charge means. White regiments already tried to take this hill. They failed. Now it falls to black soldiers to succeed where others could not. Private after private looks up at that slope. They see the muzzle flashes from Confederate cannons finding their range. They hear the whistle of artillery shells passing overhead. They smell gunpowder drifting down from the heights. The flag bearer hoists the regimental colors. The banner reads, "Presented by the colored ladies of Murfreesboro." Those women sewed every stitch, believing these men would carry it with honor. 5 color bearers will fall before this day ends. 5 men will die keeping that flag from touching the ground. But right now, in this moment, there is only the hill, only the order, only the choice between proving every doubter wrong or dying in the attempt. The 13th steps forward. To understand what the 13th United States Colored Troops is about to accomplish, you need to understand what Union generals believed about black soldiers in 1864. General George Thomas commanded all Union forces at Nashville. A Virginian by birth who chose to fight for the Union, Thomas had earned the nickname Rock of Chickamauga for his steadiness under fire. He was considered one of the finest commanders in the entire Union Army. But when it came to black soldiers, Thomas held the same assumptions as most white officers of his era. He believed black men could not fight in open combat. Thomas made this clear to Colonel Thomas Morgan of the 14th United States Colored Troops. He told Morgan directly that he did not believe Morgan's men would stand and fight in the open field. This was not whispered behind closed doors. This was official military thinking at the highest levels. The common practice throughout the Union Army was to assign black troops exclusively to fatigue and garrison duties. Digging trenches, building fortifications, guarding railroad tracks, burying the dead. The backbreaking labor that white soldiers did not want to perform. When Colonel Reuben Mussey, the commissioner appointed to organize black regiments in Tennessee, complained that commanders did not understand what these men were capable of, Thomas's chief of staff had him arrested. Mussey remained under arrest until he issued a formal retraction and apology. This was the system. Black men could serve, but only as laborers. They could wear the uniform, but only to dig. The very idea that they might charge fortified positions, face artillery fire, engage in hand-to-hand combat with Confederate soldiers was dismissed as fantasy. General William Sherman held an even lower opinion. During his Atlanta campaign, he did everything possible to keep black troops in the rear. When he began his famous March to the Sea in November 1864, Sherman made certain to leave all his United States colored troops behind. He wanted nothing to do with them. The men of the 13th knew exactly what their commanders thought of them. Most had been born into bondage right here in Tennessee. They had escaped or been liberated when Union forces arrived. They enlisted not because the army welcomed them with open arms, but because they demanded the right to fight for their own freedom. For the past year, these men had done everything asked of them. They built Fort Negley. They guarded the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad. They repelled Confederate raids at Johnsonville. They proved themselves reliable, disciplined, capable, and still their commanders kept them away from major combat. The obstacles facing them at Peach Orchard Hill seemed designed to confirm every doubt. Confederate General Stephen Lee had positioned his corps on the high ground. Artillery batteries commanded every approach. The slope was covered with felled trees, branches sharpened into obstacles called abatis that would slow any advance to a crawl. Behind earthworks waited veteran Confederate infantry who had been fighting since the war began. No commander in his right mind would send untested troops against such a position. The men of the 13th had never faced anything like this. Their first significant combat action would be a frontal assault uphill against fortified positions that had already repulsed white regiments. But on December 16, 1864, everything changes. The assault begins at 3:00 p.m. Colonel Thompson gives the order. The 12th and 100th Regiments advance first, with the 13th in support behind them. The men step out of their positions and begin moving toward Peach Orchard Hill. Almost immediately, Confederate artillery opens fire. The first shells explode among the advancing lines. Men disappear in clouds of dirt and smoke. The sounds are deafening: explosions, screaming, the constant crack of rifle fire from the heights above. They keep moving. The ground between them and the Confederate works is a nightmare. Dense thickets of brush block their path. The formation of the 12th Regiment breaks apart as men push through tangled undergrowth. The 100th encounters fallen trees laid deliberately by Confederate engineers. Branches sharpened into spikes. Every step forward means climbing over or crawling under obstacles, while rebel marksmen take aim from above. Artillery shells continue to fall. Canister shot tears through the ranks. This is what canister does. It turns a cannon into a giant shotgun, spraying hundreds of iron balls into massed infantry at close range. Men fall in clusters. 2 soldiers of the 13th started this charge. They are losing men every second. They keep moving. The 12th and 100th Regiments stall. The terrain has broken their formations completely. Men bunch together trying to find paths through the fallen timber. Confederate defenders pour fire into these clusters. Colonel Thompson orders the 12th to take shelter and regroup. The assault is falling apart. But the 13th does not stop. They push past the stalled regiments. They push past the men taking cover. They push directly into the heaviest fire on the entire battlefield. The slope steepens. The Confederate earthworks loom above them. Rebel soldiers stand in their trenches, loading and firing as fast as they can work their rifles. The flag goes down. The first color-bearer falls. Before the banner touches the earth, another man grabs it. He raises it high and keeps climbing. Confederate marksmen see the flag. They concentrate their fire. The second color-bearer falls. A third man takes the colors. He falls. A fourth, then a fifth. 5 men die keeping that flag aloft. 5 men from Tennessee who were once considered property now give their lives carrying a banner sewn by black women from Murfreesboro. Each one knows what will happen when he reaches for those colors. Each one reaches anyway. The regiment advances to within 40 feet of the Confederate works. 40 feet. Close enough to see the faces of the men trying to kill them. Close enough to hear officers shouting orders in the trenches. The fire is so intense that an Alabama soldier later writes he has seen most battlefields of the Western Theater, but never saw dead men thicker than in front of his position. The 13th cannot break through. There are simply not enough of them left. White regiments on their flank have fallen back. No support is coming. They have charged further than any other unit on this part of the field, taken more casualties than any regiment in the entire battle, and they cannot take the hill alone. But they do not run. They take what cover they can find. They return fire. They hold their ground 40 feet from Confederate rifles, while the rest of the assault reorganizes behind them. Men who were told they could only dig trenches now fight and die, proving that assumption was always a lie. In the chaos of that hillside, one man makes a decision that no order required and no officer commanded. He is a color-bearer with the 2nd Colored Brigade. His name is not recorded in any official report. History does not remember what he was called, or where he was born, or how he came to be standing on that slope in December 1864. What history remembers is what he did. When the assault falters and regiments begin falling back to regroup, this man does not retreat with them. He stops in the open ground between the 2 armies. No cover, no protection, just grass and mud and the bodies of fallen soldiers. Confederate rifles are still firing. Artillery is still thundering from the heights. Any sane man would run for shelter. Any reasonable soldier would fall back with his unit and wait for the next assault. This man plants his flag in the ground. He drives the staff into the Tennessee earth and stands beside it. The banner catches the December wind. Confederate marksmen can see it clearly. They know what that flag represents. They know a black soldier is standing in the open, daring them to shoot him down. He raises his rifle. He takes aim at the Confederate works, and he begins to fire. One man, one rifle, one flag, standing alone in the killing ground between two armies. He loads and fires with the deliberate calm of a man on a practice range. No rushing, no panic. Each shot aimed and delivered while bullets whisper past him and artillery shells explode nearby. The men watching from both sides cannot believe what they are seeing. Colonel Thomas Morgan witnesses the entire scene. He later writes that this color-bearer kept up his independent warfare for some time, greatly amusing the Union soldiers watching from safer positions. But there is more than amusement in that moment. There is awe. This is what courage looks like when it has nothing left to prove and everything to demonstrate. This man is not fighting because someone ordered him to fight. He is fighting because he refuses to let anyone say black soldiers cannot stand under fire. He is fighting because that flag was sewn by black women who believed in him. He is fighting because every shot he fires is an answer to every white officer who said men like him belonged in the rear digging ditches. The Confederates cannot ignore him. He is too visible, too defiant. They pour fire at his position. Somehow he remains standing. Somehow he keeps shooting. One soldier conducting his own private war against an entire army. The men of the 13th see this. The men of the 12th and 100th see this. They see a black man alone in no man's land, refusing to yield 1 inch of ground. If he can stand there, what excuse do they have for staying in cover? When the second assault finally comes, these men remember what they witnessed. They remember the color-bearer who planted his flag and fought alone. They carry that image with them as they rise to charge again. His name is lost, his face is forgotten, but what he did on that hillside lives in every account of the battle. He showed what black soldiers were made of when white America refused to see it. He answered doubt with defiance and contempt with courage. One man, one flag, one choice that changed how everyone on that field understood what was possible. The 13th United States Colored Troops does not take Peach Orchard Hill. They advance further than any other regiment. They suffer more casualties than any other unit in the entire battle. But they cannot capture the Confederate works alone. What they do is something far more devastating to the Confederate cause. General John Bell Hood watches the assault from his headquarters. He sees black soldiers climbing that slope through murderous fire. He sees them reach within 40 feet of his lines and refuse to retreat. He sees the pressure building on his right flank. Hood makes a decision. He pulls 2 brigades from his left flank and sends them to reinforce Peach Orchard Hill. The black soldiers must be stopped, whatever it takes. This is the moment the battle turns. Hood's left flank anchors on a prominence called Shies Hill. When those 2 brigades march away to reinforce the right, the defenders on Shies Hill are stretched impossibly thin. Where there should be concentrated strength, there are now gaps. Where there should be reserves, there is nothing. At 4:00 p.m., Union General John MacArthur sees the weakness. He orders his division to charge Shies Hill. 3 brigades of Union infantry storm up the slope. The depleted Confederate defenders cannot hold. The line cracks, then it shatters. Confederate soldiers begin running, not retreating in good order, running. The collapse spreads like fire through dry grass. Regiment after regiment breaks. Officers scream for their men to stand, but no one listens. The Army of Tennessee disintegrates. On Peach Orchard Hill, the men of the 13th see what is happening. They see Confederate soldiers abandoning their works and fleeing south. Without waiting for orders, they attack again. This time they sweep over the earthworks that stopped them before. They capture the guns that killed so many of their brothers. They plant their flag on the position that was supposed to be impossible for black soldiers to take. The rout becomes a catastrophe. Hood's entire army streams southward in complete disorder. One Confederate soldier later writes that the woods were everywhere full of running soldiers, that officers were crying halt and trying to rally broken ranks, that nearly every man in the entire army threw away his guns. The numbers tell the story. Hood brought roughly 30,000 men to Nashville. Union forces capture nearly 8,000 Confederate soldiers in the battle and pursuit. Another 2,300 are killed or wounded. 53 pieces of artillery fall into Union hands. The Army of Tennessee loses 75% of its fighting strength over the course of the campaign. This is not merely a defeat. Military historians call Nashville the most complete victory of the entire Civil War. No other battle produces such total destruction of a Confederate army. No other engagement so thoroughly eliminates an enemy force as a factor in the war. The men who made this victory possible are the same men white generals said could only dig trenches. Their assault on Peach Orchard Hill drew Hood's reserves away from the decisive point. Their courage under fire forced the Confederate commander into the mistake that cost him everything. Black soldiers who were not trusted to fight just ended the Tennessee campaign. Black soldiers who were assigned to fatigue duty just destroyed an entire Confederate army. Black soldiers who were told they would break under fire just won the most complete Union victory of the war. The question was never whether they could fight. The question was whether anyone would let them prove it. The evening of December 16, 1864. The guns have fallen silent. General George Thomas rides his horse across the battlefield to survey what his army has accomplished. He moves slowly through the carnage. The slopes of Peach Orchard Hill are covered with bodies. Union and Confederate soldiers lie together in the mud, their blood mixing in the Tennessee soil. Thomas looks at the fallen men. He sees white faces and black faces side by side. This is the general who told Colonel Morgan that black soldiers could not fight in the open field. This is the commander whose chief of staff arrested an officer for suggesting black troops deserved combat assignments. This is the man who believed what every white officer of his generation believed about black men and war. Thomas turns to his staff. His words will be recorded and repeated for generations. Gentlemen, the question is settled. Negroes will fight. 7 words. After years of doubt and dismissal, after policies that kept black soldiers digging trenches while white regiments earned glory, after assumptions so deeply held that questioning them meant arrest and disgrace. 7 words that admitted everything the military establishment had believed was wrong. The recognition does not come only from Union officers. Confederate General James Holtzclaw commanded the Alabama Brigade that faced the 13th on Peach Orchard Hill. His men killed hundreds of black soldiers that afternoon. In his official report to his superiors, Holtzclaw writes about what he witnessed. He describes the black soldiers placing their brigade in front and gallantly dashing up the slope. He writes that they were killed by hundreds. He notes that they continued to come up in masses to the earthworks, that they came only to die. Then Holtzclaw adds a sentence that no Confederate general should ever write about black men. I have seen most of the battlefields of the West, but never saw dead men thicker than in front of my 2 right regiments. This is not praise freely given. This is acknowledgement forced from an enemy who wanted nothing more than to dismiss these soldiers as inferior. Holtzclaw cannot deny what he saw. Black soldiers charged his fortified position with a ferocity that exceeded anything in his experience. He must record it, he must report it to his commanders. The truth demands witness, even from those who hate it. A Union surgeon writes home to his family after the battle. His letter captures what white soldiers now understand about their black comrades. Don't tell me Negroes won't fight. Throughout the Union Army, the doubts dissolve. Men who served alongside the 13th watched them climb that hill. Men who saw the color bearers fall one after another and watched new hands raise the flag each time. Men who witnessed a lone soldier plant his banner in the killing ground and fight his own private war. These witnesses carry the truth back to their regiments, their families, their communities. The 13th pays for this recognition with blood. Of the 576 men who begin the assault, 221 become casualties, 55 killed, 165 wounded, a casualty rate of nearly 40%. No other Union regiment at Nashville suffers losses even close to this number. Colonel Thompson's other regiments also bleed heavily. The 100th loses 133 men, the 12th loses 114. Together, the three black regiments of the 2nd Colored Brigade suffer more casualties than any comparable unit on the field. This is the price of proof. This is what it costs to change minds that refuse to change. The men of the 13th did not ask for the chance to die in greater numbers than anyone else. They asked only for the chance to fight. Nashville gave them that chance. They made certain no one could ever deny what they were capable of again. The Army of Tennessee never recovers from Nashville. General Hood leads his shattered force south through freezing rain and mud, harassed every mile by Union cavalry. By Christmas Day, the remnants cross the Tennessee River into Alabama. What began as a campaign to recapture Tennessee and threaten the Ohio River ends in complete catastrophe. Hood resigns his command in January 1865. His military career is finished. The army he destroyed through reckless aggression is parceled out to other commands, but it never fights as a unified force again. 4 months later, the Confederacy surrenders. The men of the 13th United States Colored Troops return to duty. They continue serving until the war ends and beyond. These soldiers, who proved themselves on Peach Orchard Hill, remain in uniform, guarding the peace they helped to win. When they finally muster out, they return to a Tennessee transformed by their sacrifice. The battle changes more than military strategy. It changes how America thinks about black soldiers. Before Nashville, the question of whether black men could fight remained open in the minds of white officers and politicians. After Nashville, that question is closed forever. Thomas himself becomes an advocate for black troops based on what he witnessed. The man who doubted now believes. The dead of the 13th find their final rest at Nashville National Cemetery. General Thomas personally selects the site on rolling ground north of the city, along the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. He wants every traveler arriving from the north to see this place and remember the sacrifices made to preserve the Union. More than 1,800 United States Colored Troops soldiers lie buried in that cemetery. They rest in Section J, separate from their white officers even in death. The segregation of the era follows them to their graves, but their presence in that hallowed ground cannot be denied or erased. They earned their place through blood. For more than a century, their story fades from public memory. School books celebrate other battles. Monuments rise to other heroes. The men who charged Peach Orchard Hill become footnotes, then forgotten entirely. But memory returns. In 2003, a monument is dedicated at Nashville National Cemetery. The inscription reads, "In memory of the 2,133 who served as United States Colored Troops in the Union Army." 20,000 men from Tennessee alone who put on the uniform and fought for their own freedom. In 2006, a bronze statue joins the monument. 9 feet tall, it depicts a black soldier in Union uniform standing at attention. The sculptor uses a living model, a Navy veteran and reenactor named William Radcliffe, who portrays members of the 13th at commemorations and educational events. The statue ensures that visitors see what a United States Colored Troops soldier looked like. It ensures they cannot look away. Today, you can climb Peach Orchard Hill. The ground where the 13th charged is partly covered by a school athletic field now, but markers tell the story. Historical signs describe what happened on that slope in December 1864. The names of the fallen endure. They said black men could not fight. The 13th answered with courage that Confederate generals called unmatched on any battlefield in the West. They said black soldiers belonged in the rear digging ditches. The 13th answered by suffering more casualties than any regiment at Nashville and refusing to break. They did not fight for recognition. They fought for freedom. Recognition came because they left white America no choice but to see them as they truly were. Soldiers, warriors, men. Nashville proved it, history remembers it, and the 13th made certain that no one could ever deny it again.